Ramaphosa is on the final stretch of the China-Africa Cooperation Summit taking place in the Chinese capital, Beijing. The biggest gathering of African heads of state outside of the continent wraps up its business today. President Xi Jinping has pledged to step up China's support across Africa with funding of nearly $51 billion over the next 3 years. Newzroom Africa's business editor, Xolani Mbanjwa, has been closely following those developments and join us live now from Beijing. Xolani, considering the commitments that were made before and how China has fallen short of those commitments, I wonder what some of the delegates' takeaway is from the new commitments that have been made by Xi Jinping.
Good morning, Aldrin. Yes, indeed, you are right. The past couple of years has seen the commitments made by China becoming less and less of a reality. But the Chinese officials have been saying that there are geopolitical issues that have got in the way of doing business, including the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the conflicts between Russia and Ukraine, as well as the Middle East conflict. But the deepening cooperation is made a return here at the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, and today being the last day, as you will see around us here in Beijing, this is the last day where we will have that particular cooperation between entrepreneurs from the African continent and those from China. This is ongoing right now behind me, as some African heads of state are still around. President Cyril Ramaphosa is making his way back home, but there are significant undertakings, not just to the 10-point plan, but also to some of the money that was actually committed by the president of China, Xi Jinping. And when it comes to those commitments, President Ramaphosa addressing this particular summit after Xi Jinping and the Sudanese co-chair of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation yesterday. It was an important one to note that Ramaphosa was saying that it is important for those who are naysayers to be put in their place, because many people back home, not just South Africa, but the rest of the continent, are skeptical about this particular cooperation. So in a sideline briefing to the South African media contingent, this is what the president has to say about those skeptics who see this journey that South Africa is cementing with this particular visit as something that is a lost cause. Take a listen.
In relation to those naysayers, those who are still doubtful, like the biblical Thomas, I would say that this being the very first state visit in the era of the 7th administration and in the era of the government of national unity is a very important and clear signal of how we view the People's Republic of China, and also the intention of the government of national unity to have a foreign policy direction and trajectory that supports our economic growth. Now, China, as I said earlier, is our biggest and largest trading partner, and we are attracting more and more Chinese companies as investors in South Africa. And we're fortunate to have a Chinese government that is committed to foster our development. President Xi Jinping is at pains when he talks to me about not having enough manufactured goods from South Africa. And he says, President Ramaphosa, we want to see more goods in China from South Africa.
So, Aldrin, it is important to note that President Xi Jinping didn't just make empty promises, but when he committed to a 10-point action plan with African partners, noting that there were 50 African heads of state here. That is an important thing to note. He then announced the $51 billion funding for some of those projects, including in health, science and technology, green energy, cultural exchanges, as well as committing to 30 infrastructure projects that are going to help African nations realize that goal of the African continental free trade area. Back to you in studio, Aldrin.
Thank you so much, Xolani Mbanjwa. They're joining us from Beijing. This is the final day of FOCAC, and remember, of course, that the president started it off with an official state visit to Xi Jinping.
Yeah, and of course, big conversations around whether or not those outcomes will be seen years from now, and certainly the commitments that have been made at the conference as well. But